Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is responding after President Trump refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power after the election.
Well, we're going to have to see what happens.
McConnell tweeted this morning that there will be an orderly transition, just as there has been every 4 years since 1792. With just 40 days until the election, President Trump is also pushing unfounded claims that voting by mail leads to widespread fraud. Voting is already underway in some states. And some encouraging news for teachers and parents. The Washington Post reports researchers at the University of Minnesota have found little evidence so far that the coronavirus is spreading inside schools. Researchers at the University Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy say, unlike college students, COVID-19 outbreaks among children have not been as prevalent as was feared. They say it's unclear how much of that is due to policies like mandatory mask wearing. President Trump and the First Lady were wearing their masks when they paid their respects to late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg this morning. Many in the crowd booed the president as he stood outside the Supreme Court. As the president standing right by Ginsburg casket where she's lying in repose. In a statement, the president praised Ginsburg for her brilliant mind and powerful dissents. Thousands of mourners have filed past her casket to honor the legal icon who died last week after 27 years on the court. Tomorrow, Justice Ginsburg will become the first woman and the first Jewish American to lie in state at the U.S. Capitol ahead of her burial in a private ceremony next week at Arlington National Cemetery. And now to the unrest across the country following the grand jury decision in the Breonna Taylor case. Protesters took to the streets in several major cities after the grand jury declined to charge 3 officers in Taylor's killing. One officer was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment for firing into a neighbor's apartment. Last night's protests were mostly peaceful, but things did turn violent in Louisville, where at least 2 officers were shot. ABC's Trevor Ault is there in Louisville with more. Trevor, what's it like there right now?
Well, good morning, Diane. I think it could be described as a bit of an eerie calm right now. A very peaceful morning so far in Louisville, but there's still huge sections of downtown that are closed off. You can see the police presence behind me. And tonight, once again, just like last night, a curfew citywide is going to be kicking in at around 9 o'clock. Now, there were, of course, thousands of people out here in Louisville last night. After that curfew kicked in, the protest did largely dissipate. But again, that was also after those 2 police officers were shot here. It's a staggering, almost historic level of tension in Louisville, and there's no signs of this unrest slowing down anytime soon, Diane.
And Trevor, what do we know about the officers who were shot and how they're doing?
Well, police tell us that neither of those officers suffered life-threatening injuries. One of them was shot in the abdomen and did go into surgery. The other one was shot in the thigh. But again, that's the police chief saying that neither of them are at risk of dying as of right now. We do know that one person has been arrested in this shooting, 26-year-old Lorenzo Johnson. He's going to be charged with multiple counts of first-degree assault on a police officer and also wanton endangerment, which, of course, is the same charge that one officer was charged with in the Breonna Taylor shooting incident as well, Diane.
All right, Trevor Ault for us in Louisville. Trevor, thanks. Hope you and the rest of the city stay safe tonight. And for more, I want to bring in ABC contributor LZ Granderson. LZ, thanks for being here. You know, this is a moment of racial reckoning in our country. We've seen these protests across the country for months now. What does this decision mean for this movement?
Well, it means that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. There's so many disturbing elements to this case regarding Breonna Taylor that I would take up your entire show just to go through them all. But I think overall what it shows is that there is a legitimate reason why there continues to be distrust between minorities in particular and law enforcement. I don't know how you can look at some of the evidence, such as a plea deal offer being made to Breonna's ex-boyfriend if he were to say Breonna was part of a drug syndicate in July. Why do you need to do that if everything you did was justified? I tell you why, because you're trying to cover your tracks. And so when you see things like that, it makes it very difficult to think justice has been served or will be served.
And LZ, I know there's so much to unpack with this one, but is there anything in particular that you think makes this case such a flashpoint?
There are a couple of things. There's some retreads. For example, the officer that was fired in June. Why is that important? Because the incident happened in March. In other words, the officer in question wasn't fired until protests began. if you were following proper procedures, why wasn't he fired back in March? Because they were trying to get away with it. Other things that are very, very disturbing about this case is the simple fact that, when you look at the boyfriend who fired the shots, the reason why the case was dropped wasn't because prosecutors had a change of heart. It's because when they submitted the evidence to the grand jury, they forgot to submit or chose not to submit his reasoning for shooting, which was he thought that he was protecting his house because he didn't know they were police officers. They didn't mention that in the grand jury. The judge dropped the freaking charges because they were trying to railroad him into being prosecuted for attempted murder. There's just so many things about this case that are so disturbing. And the fact that Breonna Taylor, as a Black woman, has had her name lifted up is also important because of the fact that we tend to simply focus in on what happens to Black and brown men, not the women. So say her name as a rallying cry, and Breonna Taylor in particular, is really important because it reminds all of us that this just isn't a problem that affects men. This affects women as well.
All right, Elsie Granderson, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And with millions of Americans still out of work, a number of companies are planning to add thousands of jobs for the holiday season. And some employers say many of those jobs could turn into permanent positions. Here's ABC's chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis.
This morning, with more than 29 million Americans currently collecting unemployment benefits, new seasonal jobs more important than ever. Macy's exclusively telling GMA they will host a national holiday hiring event on September 29th to fill 25,000 full and part-time roles at their fulfillment centers across the country for the holiday season. Walmart announcing plans to hire 20,000 employees at fulfillment centers as they prep for an increase in online shopping this holiday. The retail giant hiring for a range of roles with hourly wages up to $23.75. FedEx says it plans to add more than 70,000 workers. And UPS, which has previously offered permanent jobs to a third of seasonal employees, is looking to add another 100,000 this holiday. Much of the hiring happening now for roles that last 3 to 4 months. So how do you find a seasonal gig? Job seekers can apply directly on employer websites or use a free online job search engine like Indeed, Glassdoor, or LinkedIn.
And the trick to making that seasonal work permanent is having a conversation up front with your hiring manager. Let them know your intentions, that you'd like to stay on for the long haul. Ask them if there are any specific criteria, things that you would need to live up to as a seasonal worker in order to guarantee your longer-term employment. Obviously, make sure you do those things. And one thing to keep in mind about this year, which is very different from seasonal hiring in the past, is that a lot of these jobs can actually be done remotely. I've seen a number of customer service manager positions where you could do that from home. You can apply from home, you can speak to your manager from home, and you can actually conduct the job from home. And the other big difference this year will be hours. Previously, Black Friday was the big reason for a number of retailers to staff up because it was all happening in person. This year will look very different. It will be remote. And if you're willing to work hours, for example, overnight hours because of social distancing, well, you might have an even better shot at getting a job right now. Diane?
All right, ABC's chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis. Thanks, Rebecca. And want to take a road trip but are concerned about stopping in coronavirus hotspots? Well, there's an app for that. ABC's Kenneth Moten has that story and more science and tech headlines right now.
In today's Tech Bites, Google Maps is rolling out a new feature focused on the pandemic. It's a color-coded layer that gives users critical information on COVID-19 case counts and trends, region by region. Google says it will help people make more informed decisions about where to go and what to do. The wait for Apple's iPhone 12 may be over soon. The launch event is reportedly set for October 13th, with the actual devices available on October 23rd. Apple is expected to unveil 4 new models, including a smaller version some are calling the iPhone Mini. Finally, that's a 60-foot tall, 25-ton robot that's been under construction near Tokyo for 6 years. It's made of plastic and steel and just moved for the first time. The robot is meant to resemble a character from a hit 70s TV show. Ultimately, it will be a tourist attraction. Those are your Tech Bites. Diane Diane, nothing scary about that big old robot, right? Back to you.
I would definitely keep my cool if that thing just randomly started moving when I wasn't expecting it, Kenneth. Thank you. And a programming note: with just over a month until the election, ABC News Live is launching a new political show where we'll unpack the issues impacting people across the country. I'll be co-anchoring with ABC's Terry Moran. Your Voice, Your Vote, The Breakdown starts Monday, September 28th at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on ABC News Live. Please join us. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. Have a great day.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.